Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSP Magazine. You're listening to a new The Hacker Factory podcast with hacker maker Phillip Wylie. You're about to discover what the role of a professional hacker entails, the different specializations it holds, and what it takes to learn and become one. Enjoy the conversation as Phillip and guests unveil the secrets of professional hacking, a mysterious, intriguing, and often misunderstood occupation. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
Hello and welcome to the Hacker Factory podcast. I am your host, Phillip Wylie. I refer to myself as the hacker maker because I teach pen testers as well as mentor aspiring pen testers. And this show is an extension of those efforts. Each episode, I have someone that works in cybersecurity, ethical hacking, pen testing, application security, physical security, all sorts of areas. And so the goal of this show is to share those stories to help people that are wanting to get interested. You know, some of these people, the stories may click with you more and maybe just what you need to motivate you to get started. And today, I'm very honored to have my friend and fellow Hacking is Not Crime advocate, John Jackson. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you joining us today. Could you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am a senior application security engineer, and I double over as a security researcher on my free time and the founder of Sakura Samurai.
Oh, cool. So how long have you been doing the security research?
So not even a full year, to be honest. I think I might have started in late or mid 2020 actually, and I started accidentally.
Oh, cool. So what platforms do you bug hunt on, if you don't mind sharing?
Sure. So mostly our group focuses on vulnerability disclosure programs, and as far as bug bounty programs go, we typically use BugCrowd, but sometimes HackerOne. I mean, we're pretty neutral when it comes to what we'll use, but you know, our end goal is more of getting some high impact research and getting enterprises to fix bad security.
Oh, very cool. I used to be a BugCrowd ambassador, and that was I kind of got into that to try to help people get started in bug bounty because it's a good way to get experience. So, based on your experience, do you think that's a good way for people to get experience that want to be pen testers or application security analysts?
So to be completely honest with you, it is a little bit of a loaded question, but I would say not exactly. Okay. I think that capture the flags and hack the box and try hack me are better ways to start, especially when you're new, because bug bounty programs, especially if they're public, because you have to start with public programs, are pretty hardened. You might find some low hanging fruit, but it's not going to be like hacking on Try Hack Me or Hack the Box. So I think when you're learning, it's better to use more guided platforms. Try Hack Me being more guided, Hack the Box being a little less involved for the beginner per se, I would say.
Good advice. Yeah, one of the things that I know too is the bug bounties, like you said, they're not easy, because I've been a pen tester for years and trying to do bug bounty. I'm just really in awe of anyone that can make a living solely off doing bug bounty, because it's kind of like hunting, or someone that's a hunter gatherer for food. If you can't find food, you don't eat. And the same thing with bug bounty. If you don't find bugs, you don't get paid. And so it seems like it forces you to be better at your trade, whereas a pen tester, you go in and run the pen test. If you don't find anything, you still get paid. So it really seems like a way to force you to work harder and think of things in a different way.
There is a common theme among the best bug bounty hunters out there, and the theme is automation. They automate a lot of these scanning processes to find the low-hanging fruit before anyone else does. Today is new. I think he's one of the best BugCrowd people. He has automation workflows where he can basically nab all the subdomain takeovers before anyone else. So, if they misconfigure, if there's a dangling DNS record somewhere hanging around, he takes it over in 2 seconds before anyone else. So yeah, when you think about it like that, it's like the experienced hunter versus someone new getting into it. They're not going to find that subdomain takeover when they're going up against him, because he's got it mapped out. It's his career. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I got to meet him at one of the Bug Crowd Bug Bashes in San Francisco back in 2019, right before summer camp, and it was interesting talking to him. And also, we interviewed him for the Bug Bounty Summit for Gray Hat last year, and it was interesting hearing his story that that's all he does for a living is bug bounty. So that takes some real talent to be able to do that full time.
Yeah, that's super cool. So bug bounty is more where we turn if we find something that happens to be on one of those platforms. Like, we don't solely go on BugCrowd and HackerOne and start hacking. We usually start with vulnerability disclosure programs, or one of us stumbles upon something weird, because that's what happened with Keybase, actually, when we hacked Keybase.
Oh, cool. So what resource do you use? Are you a fan of disclose.io for some of your disclosure type information?
I'm a huge fan of disclose.io. I got involved pretty early in the process, and I try to help people get disclosure. It's a major theme to see a lot of instances where researchers stumble upon vulnerabilities. It seems impossible, but it actually happens all of the time, especially when you start to get in that offensive mindset. And it's awful when you don't know who to disclose to. So Casey making that program it's phenomenal.
Yeah. Could you describe what that is for our listeners? What disclose.io is?
Sure. So it's a lot of different things. So the aspect that I'm involved in is the community portion of it, where researchers can, share their write-ups and share their work. And if they don't know who to talk to, basically, to get disclosure for vulnerabilities that they may have found, maybe they're struggling, maybe there's no security team, there's a lot of different scenarios. They can go there and look it up. But overall, the goal of it is for enterprises and different entities to kind of just pick up the idea of vulnerability disclosure programs and getting on board with encouraging researchers to disclose to them, and understanding, that it shouldn't be something that will be punished. And Casey and the rest of the people that work with him do a pretty good job of, making like boiler templates for programs for these companies that want to get involved.
That's good. And it's probably a good resource for people to get information. I had someone asking me a while back, they found a bug on some website, and I just kind of referred them to disclose.io, because it's a really good place to find information on how to approach those things if they don't have bug bounties and that sort of thing. Because you definitely want to be careful when you're doing this stuff. You'll get yourself in trouble, because you hear the horror stories of people that, like, especially the one that I think of the most is the DJI drone, that there was the bounty for that. And they found the bugs in it, reported it, and they were like trying to sue them or something. And they followed proper procedures. So you have to really cover yourself.
There's a lot of situations like that. I had my own run-in with Talkspace. That's what started me in security research. They sent me a cease and desist letter, which was hilarious because I had basically found a business logic 0-day where I could just get online therapy for free, and you're talking thousands of dollars of free stuff. And they said it wasn't a vuln. They said it wasn't a vulnerability. They said they have processes in place to basically disable accounts that are abusing that. But that was not the case, because I had a few friends try it out for me and go through the whole thing. And that it just wasn't the case at all. So when they said it was not a risk at all and it wasn't a vuln, I said, okay, well, I guess I'll just publish on it. And then, I did a little blog write up, and next thing you know, I had a cease and desist letter. So it was, but I didn't know anything about research at that point in time. It was interesting. But yeah, I'd like to say I was out of scope, but with business logic flaws, it's so complex, in the sense of they kind of bake that functionality in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you kind of learned the hard way, or had to be kind of a scary situation.
It was very frightening for me because I didn't know anything about research. I didn't have resources. I didn't really know people in this field. So I reached out to Zach Whitaker, and he from TechCrunch, and he actually wrote about the cease and desist letter. So and they backed off, but I still took the blog down because I just didn't want to get wrapped up in a legal battle with those guys.
Very interesting, and kind of speaking along the same lines and projects that Casey's a fan of. The Hacking is Not a Crime. You're an advocate for hacking is not a crime. Could you explain to our listeners what that is and what you do as an advocate?
Sure. So yeah, overall, hacking is not a crime. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's redefining the hacking space and helping people understand, and especially people that are non-technical, understand that when a hacker finds a vulnerability and reports it, it's not a criminal act, right? They're doing them a solid. They're basically doing them a favor. And along with that, I mean, there's a lot of different aspects that really comes with it. One is the whole argument of different hats, like black, white, and gray hats, and kind of redefining that space a little bit. And the other is calling criminal actions or associating criminal actions with hackers, right? Someone will leak a database, right? Or hack in and ransomware a company, and they say hacker did this. Hacker, ransomware whatever company, and says they'll release the data if they don't get the ransom. That it's problematic because there's a lot of us out there, and we're trying to change the space. We're trying to secure these organizations. Sometimes externally, when you talk bug bounty programs and vulnerability disclosure programs and CVEs even, and then other times internally, right? People that are penetration testers, people that are red teamers internally for companies. This is what it takes to secure the space, basically, and it really hurts us when hackers are getting that rep just by using the word hacker. People think that it's bad, and it makes it difficult for us to operate within the space, the legal spaces, in the job spaces.
Yeah, and that's one of the things you run into. I'll describe to people before in the past what I do for a job as a penetration tester, and it's easy sometimes to say you're an ethical hacker, but so many times people will come up, is there such thing as an ethical hacker? It's like, well, not, it's just like people, there are good people, there are bad people. Not all people are bad. Not all people are good. So you just can't lump everyone into one basket. So that's really, really good. What Hacking is Not a Crime is doing, get out there, get awareness that, not all hacking is bad. It's needed. If it wasn't for pen testers, hackers, and researchers, there'd be a lot more vulnerabilities out there. It would be only the bad guys doing the hacking. So it's a much needed space, and then it needs to be respected, and the value needs to be understood. Otherwise, we'd be in a lot worse place than what we are.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's complex too, even to a specific sense of the phrase ethical hacker as well, right? Because ethical hacker is such a loaded phrase. I really don't like how they coined ethical hacker as a thing. I get why they did it, right? Because obviously old school hackers that wanted to make a living out of it needed to push kind of into a new space, right? A new territory where they could secure enterprises for a living. But so they obviously had to push that kind of phrase. But ethics are not equal to what necessarily is legal or isn't legal per se. And that's where it gets really philosophical and strange in a real kind of twilight zone, right? It's like, would you say it's ethical to, expose child abusers or something like that, right? Like by hacking them, right? Someone might argue yes, but in how that corresponds to the law is, well, yeah, it's against the law to hack into someone's computer without access, right? So when you think about something like that, it gets complex because ethics calling someone an ethical hacker just doesn't coincide with the actual hacking field in general, because I think like securing a corrupt organization, for instance, that like spies on Americans, would that be ethical? Well, in the sense of ethical hacking, it would be, because you're helping them secure the company, right? But in like the broader sense of philosophy and ethics, it's not ethical. So it's really, it just needs to be redefined, that we all kind of need to work on this together, like in the media, and we need to look at intent. It's all about intent, everything intent.
Yeah, that's a good way to explain it. Need to not even have to use the word ethical in it at all.
Do you say ethical doctor? I mean, yeah, there are ethical and unethical doctors. There are doctors that malpractice, right? But you don't necessarily say ethical doctor. You say you're going to the doctor's office, not my ethical doctor's office. It's just, it's strange to me.
Yeah. You don't want to go to the sketchy doctor, but
yeah.
So yeah, we kind of, when we got rolling into the show, kind of totally skipped over your background. Could you share your background, how you got started?
Yeah, it was random, completely random. I was going to school for philosophy. Actually, at the time, I loved philosophy, but I knew it wasn't really going to get me anywhere. Well, I mean, it could have, but I didn't really want to be a teacher, and that's honestly all you could do with a philosophy degree. And I get a random phone call from LeaderQuest in Denver, and they were just like, "Do you want to be a hacker?" And I just kind of laughed. It was because I was very non-technical. I dabbled with computers a little bit when I was 13 or 14, but I didn't program, I didn't hack. I wasn't involved in that scene early on when I was young, like a lot of hackers were. I was 23 years old, and I just said, "What? No." It's something like that, or I don't know. What are you even talking about? I have no technical skills. And they said, "Just come on down here. We'll teach you everything, a whole boot camp program." And yeah, I went down to the school, and they kind of sold me on it. It started at IDLE, ended with, when IDLE, A+, Sec+, C and D, and then Certified Ethical Hacker. I just went through the whole suite, just started getting certs and learning hacking on my own through YouTube videos. And yeah, it kind of just sparked an entire life-changing experience.
Oh, awesome. That's really cool. Interesting how people get started. And that's one of the things that I like about the show, is just hearing people's origin stories, how they got started in the business. So how would you recommend someone starting out that wanted to, get a job as a hacker or pen tester or security researcher? What would you recommend?
My biggest recommendation would be, well, I think there's a couple of aspects to it, but one of the things I really want to stress is everyone's journey is going to be different. If you think you want to get into information security by getting a college degree, then do it. If you think you want to get into InfoSec by getting certifications through a boot camp, then do it. There's no right way. I mean, my way was certification boot camp. But I mean, honestly, I could have cut out half of those certifications. I could have just went and got a CEH and a Security Plus and probably found an entry level job in information security. But you have to try to pivot in a sense, right? I hear a lot of people give, it's not necessarily bad advice, but probably not the best advice, where they're like, you should go work at a help desk for a couple of years. Kind of get the hang of it. The skills you learn at a help desk are completely different than the skills you're going to be utilizing as a security analyst, utilizing as a hacker, right? A pen tester, AppSec engineer, endpoint detection response engineer. There's so many different fields, and it's really wide. And I think that people should widen their view, right? Like if they want to be a penetration tester, don't be afraid to just dig into an information security job, anything you could really find to kind of get a start, because it's really hard to just go from nothing to pen tester. It's not impossible. I mean, you wrote the pen tester's blueprint, right? It's definitely possible if you go through the right stages, CEH and getting OSCP and getting education and really getting hands-on. Those are things you can do that help. But like for people that want to be pen testers, they should grip onto the InfoSec field and just start trying to pivot where they can. You don't have to stay there for 2 years, 3 years. You could stay for a couple months. It's that weird kind of place where recruiters want to recruit people that already have jobs.
Yeah, yeah, those are very good points, because and then if you start, depending on where you start out, you can get stuck on help desk for a while or something like that, get discouraged. So yeah, definitely, try to get started in security because, having security experience makes it easier to get a pen testing job than not having it. But if you can jump straight in, then more power to you. So
yeah,
so
exactly.
Speaking of books, don't you have a book coming out?
I do. Yeah. Actually, Kim Crawley did edits for me. So I actually hired her to do edits, like pre-edits to the edits, because I wanted it to be pretty good and sound. And yeah, the book that I'm coming out with is called Corporate Cybersecurity. And basically it's about managing the aspects of bug bounty programs and setting it up. But I took a different approach to it. I didn't want to just talk about configuring programs. I wanted to talk about the theory of a hacker's mindset too, and what you're dealing with and how you're coordinating when you are a bug bounty program manager. Because I manage a bug bounty program day to day, and I can tell you right now that coming from the aspect of someone that has hunted and reported bugs before and hit critical bugs, hit high bugs, I can tell you that if there's miscommunications in the process and the chain, it's just gonna make it so hard. And I think a lot of times on both sides of the house, there's just sheer mismanagement. Whether it's an AppSec engineer that's not understanding the severity of the vulnerability, or vice versa, right? Where a hacker thinks that they have something extremely critical, but it's nothing, right? It's a big nothing burger. And that happens. It does happen from time to time, but you have to be able to communicate that as an application security engineer. Hey, this is why the impact, why the impact is much lower than what you're reporting, or as a hacker to say, hey, well, here's why this is pretty bad from my perspective, let's discuss. And communication is a big part of the book, but I do get technical in some aspects, talking about specific vulnerability types and understanding kind of red herrings there.
Yeah, it sounds like a good concept because, while there's some books on bug bounty, but to get into those details, that's really a missing piece there. So I think it should be a good book, and good call on getting Kim to do the edits. I bet you had probably less edits from her doing it, because I know when we were going through our book, there really wasn't that many edits. It really wasn't that bad.
I'm still going through the process. The book will come out later this year, probably in the fall. I think they pushed it back to, because they have their schedule of when books come out. But I would imagine, yeah, they're not going to have to do a lot of work. I saw the amount of edits Kim did, because you could actually see like the differences between two docs, and I was blown away with how many edits she did. It was ridiculous. She cleaned up the book a lot. I'm a decent writer, but yeah, she really fine-tuned the book pretty well, combed through it.
That's good. Who's the book being published through?
It's being published through Wylie.
Oh, okay. That's good.
So it's pretty cool. I will say I am a little worried because there are a lot of people that want to read it, but it's going to be on the pricier side of the house, and that's all because of Wylie. Yeah. And the reality is it's a book that hasn't been done before. There's not really anything related to setting up bug bounty programs at all. And I think their big market or their big pitch is universities, to be honest with you. So I know it's on the pricier side of the house, and it just is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. When it comes out, I'll definitely be recommending it. So look forward to it coming out. I have to get a copy as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, we're getting down pretty close to the end of the show. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you would like to talk about? Any advice you'd like to share?
Sure. Yeah. I have tons of advice. But one of the things I really want to stress to people that are getting into hacking is that there is a learning curve, and it is a very steep learning curve. And I just want to say to all the people that are out there learning penetration testing, and really want to get into hacking, like get in there and get your hands dirty, and don't be afraid to not know everything. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to tell other people what you don't know, because sometimes you're going to meet people that are much, much better hackers and have been doing it for a very long time. Don't be afraid to tell them, hey, I don't know this concept, if they're talking to you about it. I think working with a team is a great thing to do, meeting friends and working with them, hacking together, whether that's capture the flag competitions or trying to find some bugs together or hacking on a VDP together. Like, you don't have to be a lone wolf hacker. And I think a lot of people kind of envision this, hunched over person in a basement hacking alone. And it's not like that at all. So make some friends and learn together, because I've learned a lot of skills just by working with other people. And then the other aspect of that is, don't be afraid, if you're obviously doing legal hacking, to take lower level bugs and show some people and some friends and try to escalate it together. Because a cross-site scripting for vulnerability, for example, is great, but what if you could take that to full admin account takeover and get in an admin panel that has control over a lot of sensitive data, right? Like, these are things that you need to think about when you're hacking: is how do I escalate this? How do I get better? It's a lot of good things you can do, a lot of resources out there. YouTube is the place to go. Books are amazing. There's so many books out there to read too. Just, believe in yourself a little bit, as cliche as that sounds. Just, you gotta believe a little bit.
Yeah, that's great advice. Sometimes we can be our biggest block. Sometimes we're not, believing in ourselves. So that's great advice. And back to, mentioning YouTube, kind of how I found out about bug bounty was following Jason Haddix. And then I found out about more bug bounty people. Yeah. And some of the techniques, if you're a pen tester and you have not familiar with bug bounty, follow some of these people, because they come up with some pretty cool methods. And, there's a reason why, sometimes when these bug bounties are happening, someone's already performed a web app pen test on it, and then they'd be able to go behind them and find stuff. You have to be really highly skilled. So they're good to learn from.
Yeah, it's funny. I've definitely gotten a lot of great bugs by web app hacking, and I've collaborated with red teamers and penetration testers before that I've blown away, and they're like, wow, you're such a good hacker, right? Just because I found something exposed on the client side and took it all the way to server side or something like that. But they're just different skill sets. Network hacking and web app hacking, mobile hacking, reverse engineering, they're all different skill sets. There's unlimited things you can learn, and you don't have to master one in particular, but learning a little bit of each will definitely help people that are new to it. And also not being afraid of rejection, because pen testing field and getting in it, especially from a job perspective, it's steep.
Well, we're coming to the end of our show. Thanks for joining us. It was awesome talking to you and having you as a guest.
Of course. Thanks for having me on, Phil. I really appreciate it.
And I look forward to your book.
Thank you. Look forward to sharing it.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Hacker Factory podcast with Phillip Wylie. If you learned something new and this podcast made you think, then share itspmagazine.com with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.